Hey, what's up, guys? So I want to play you this clip here from Nick Fuentes on his whole take on the Carmelo Anthony situation because he provides some pretty good insight. Plus, he pissed off a lot of people in the process. But that said, I do agree with Nick on a lot of issues, except for that whole nonsense about voting for the Democrats in the midterms. But anyways, here's Nick.
I saw this and it's a huge relief. Let's say that. It is a relief that this animal that took the life of a handsome young white guy with his whole life ahead of him, it is a relief that this piece of human garbage was held accountable. Because it wasn't a crime of sudden passion. It wasn't manslaughter. It was murder. He brought a knife to a track meet. Who does that? Who are these people in our cities, in our communities, in our schools, with our families, your children? Who does that? He brought a pocket knife to a track meet. He's in the wrong place. He's asked politely to leave. He gets shoved. He escalates it to lethal force. People like this do not belong in our society. They either should be in prison forever or they should be dead. I don't want to live in a society with animals, 17-year-olds that bring guns and knives to a high school sports outing. I don't want to live in a society, I don't think anybody does for that matter, with their wives and their children, or even themselves for that matter, where that kind of thing is going on. What kind of 17-year-old has that kind of hatred and violence in their heart? What kind of 17-year-old is capable of doing something like that? I don't think any white person, with maybe some exceptions, knows anybody in their family, their extended family, in their community who's capable of doing something like this. So somebody that is willing and able to carry out a vicious attack like that does not belong in our society. He should not be going to college. He should not be living a life, making a family of his own, having kids, God forbid. He belongs in a cage or under the ground. And that's it for people like that. The only reason they sentenced him to 35 years with the possibility of parole is because he was charged as a minor, and so he's ineligible for a life sentence without parole. But I think that's ultimately what he deserves. But I want to add on to this. So, like I said at the beginning, this is the bare minimum. It's a relief that in this case, justice was done. The killer was found guilty. He's going to prison. He's facing accountability, as he should. And by the way, it also goes the other way too with Karmelo Anthony. At the same time that Austin Metcalf's own dad was saying, hey, it's got nothing to do with race, man. It's not about politics. These things just happen. No, they don't just happen. That would have never happened if there was no black kid at the track meet. Everybody knows that. Those things don't just happen in white neighborhoods, and if they do, it's extremely infrequent. That sort of thing happens all the time in black communities. We all know that. It cuts the other way too. When Karmelo Anthony stabbed a teenager to death, heinous crime, if this is supposed to be a human being thing, where's all the condemnation from the other black people? Did black people condemn this vicious act of human evil against another human? No. They raised $800,000 to defend the murderer from accountability. Not only did the black community rally in his defense, saying free him and raising money for his legal defense, they also protested outside the courthouse, demanding that he be let go even today, saying he was provoked, he was acting in self-defense. So is it a human being thing? Is it ever? Was it a human being thing when it was George Floyd, Mike Brown, Trayvon Martin, O.J. Simpson? No, it's never a human being thing. It's always a racial thing. And at a certain point, we need to confront this. You can ignore it. You can avoid it. You can try and sidestep that conversation. But at the end of the day, why is it that we can't live in major cities? A huge part of it is because of this criminal population. And it's not all of them. Everybody knows that. It almost doesn't even need to be said. We all know not every single black person's a criminal. And we all know not every single black person is a racist against white people. We all know that. However, we also know that the reason you're not able to go safely on the subway at night or during the day is because of this contingent. I don't know how big it is. I'm not going to put a percentage on it, but there is a contingent among the black population that makes it unsafe for everybody. Blacks and whites included, Hispanics and Asians. That's why you can't ride on the subway. And the reason that you can't commute to work on the subway is because of this. That's why you got to get a car and drive in traffic. And the reason you can't live in certain neighborhoods and why you got to go and move out in the suburbs is the same reason. And the reason you can't send your kids to school in the city is because of the same reason. And the reason you can't have a 24/7 restaurant downtown, it's the same reason. And so how are we going to live? How are we going to live? How are we going to live our lives free from fear? How are we going to live our lives and even have a social fabric at all when this is the kind of thing that is going on? And I don't think people even realize the damage that diversity has done to the social fabric. People don't even realize these knock-on second-order effects of diversity. Think about it in these terms. Why is it so unaffordable to live in any major city? It's because you can't live in the ghetto. It's because whether it's Houston, Texas, or New York, or Chicago, Illinois, or Los Angeles, California, we all know a third of the city is off limits. You can't live there. All that real estate is off the table. Why? It's not because it's a poor neighborhood. It's because it's a black neighborhood. And what's the difference? You can live in a poor neighborhood, and yeah, the amenities are going to be bad, but if you live in a black neighborhood, it's going to be too dangerous. So you're priced out. You got to go to the suburbs. And you can't take the train into the city because, again, who will you encounter on the train? Violent black people. So you got to drive to work. And again, you can't hang out too late in the city because who are you going to encounter? Same crowd. And even if you want to live in the city, you're still priced out because let's say you got 3 kids. Well, you got to send them all to private school, $20,000 a pop every year. Because you send them to the public school, who are you going to encounter? Same crowd. There can be no public amenities. There can be no public pool, beach, any kind of waterfront, because what does any free public amenity attract? Those people. So you got to pay out the ass for all of the other entertainment that's way too expensive because then they can't afford it and you're not going to see them there. It's like this with everything. If black people are committing 60% of the murders, if young black men, which are, let's say, 4% actually of the population, people say it's 13%, but it's the men. So that's half. And it's the young men. So maybe that's a quarter. If 3 to 4% of the population is committing 50 to 60% of the murders, then yeah, you need to racially profile them. We need lots of police. And we're going to need to arrest a lot of black people. As long as they are the ones committing the violence and doing the carjackings and doing the smash and grab robberies and the teen takeovers, then that's going to be the demographic of the prison population. That's going to be the demographic of the people that are getting chased around on the body cam footage and sometimes shot and frequently arrested. That's how it's got to be.
Okay, so let me just pause this here for a short second because I mentioned the same thing too on my previous video, like that the subgroup within the black community just ruined everything for everyone else. You know, there are so many places we can't go out at night because we fear for our safety. We can't go to the park at night. We can't take the subway home, like Nick said, because we don't know if we're going to get shot, stabbed, or killed or assaulted. So there are just so many issues from this one particular subgroup in the black community that just ruins everything for everyone else.
There's just so much more violence being perpetrated by non-white people, whether it's blacks and Hispanics in America or Muslims and sub-Saharan Africans in Europe and the United Kingdom. A pattern is emerging. They're doing all the violence, and consequently, because they're doing all the violence, they're doing a lot of interracial violence. They're crossing over into our communities and killing our own people. They're migrating to our countries and turning our countries into war zones, centers of conflict. And again, throughout history, these things happen too. Tribal conflict happens. Sometimes the barbarians breach the perimeter and get inside the city gates, get inside the city walls. But it is what happens next which is actually what counts. When this happens, it is incumbent on a people, and in particular its government, to get together and protect the sovereignty and safety and the well-being of our polity, of our society, of our people, of our communities, of our space. If violent foreigners are invading our country and they start killing and raping everybody, it's our job to kick them out. It is our job to push them out. And we don't care if everybody's guilty or everybody's innocent. If your community is responsible for all or most of the violence, and you have turned the community into a hotbed of violence, and it's spilling over into predatory racial violence against our own, then I'm sorry, you have worn out your welcome. You gotta go now. And so it is the job of the state, which has a monopoly on the legitimate use of violence, to get the guns and get the police and get the soldiers and get these people and kick them out.
Okay, so I told you Nick was going to piss off a lot of people with this one, but he's speaking 100% the truth. The fact that the US is importing so many people from these third world nations, from these Muslim countries, and bringing them in, and these people can't assimilate. And I guess you could make an argument that, many Asians, like my parents who came from Korea, or Japanese people, they might not assimilate fully to the American language or culture, but at least they're not a tax on the system. At least they do well in the country. They contribute to the country. They don't commit crimes. So this is often why they're viewed as the model minority. But that said, the way I see this whole thing is I look at it as my house. I don't let anyone into my house. So I don't understand why the government just allows, imports all these people into the country, especially when they can't assimilate and they're just creating so many issues. The US has to look to the UK. Like, look at what's going on in the UK right now with these grooming gangs and stuff. It's all over the news. And if the US doesn't do anything about it soon, they might very well become like the UK. I want to show you some stats I pulled up here because I was curious. So the current non-Hispanic white population in the US is about 61 to 63%. I asked ChatGPT by 2050, what is that percentage going to be? It's going to be less than 50%. It's going to be at 48%. By 2075, it's going to be at 40%. And by 2100, you're looking at 35%. And then 2200, you're looking at less than 25% of the population being white. That's pretty scary to think about. Anyways, guys, if you enjoyed this video, please do leave a like, comment, or subscribe, and I'll see you on the next one.